Excellencies, honored speakers and moderators, distinguished guests and participants, ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to the 2023 World Women Economic and Business Summit. Today, it is my honor to host you along with my colleagues from KSI and our partners for this important occasion. We are all gathered here to celebrate the achievements of women and girls across the region and beyond. Asia-Pacific has made great achievements in raising women's economic empowerment, political participation, leadership, and decision-making power. We have also witnessed remarkable progress in education and health. Furthermore, 47 countries in this region have ratified the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination against Women, and 33 countries have now strategies in promoting gender equality. With the strengthening of strong legal and institutional foundations, the countries in this region have adopted progressive measures to ratify laws and regulations. Action is taken to prevent violence against women and to provide land rights. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as a woman whose career has involved stints as a medical doctor and as an entrepreneur, it delights me that this year's summit focuses on advancing women's leadership and championing diversity, inclusion, and equality. I have long believed that equality for women cannot be achieved without us women assuming leadership roles in more than tokenistic numbers. Throughout the world, we are still in the process of seeing this aspiration being realized. The empowerment of women and girls is closely linked to several of the Sustainable Development Goals, including education, poverty, and climate change. A significant structural barrier to women's economic empowerment is the uneven burden of domestic unpaid work that restricts women from undertaking paid jobs, advanced education and skills training, and most importantly, participation in public life. While household work has economic value, it is not counted in the traditional measures of GDP. Social and cultural norms often limit the capacity of women to engage in formal economy due to restricted mobility and lack of access to quality education, training, and finance. According to the 2018 McKinsey Power of Parity report, advancing women's equality in 2025 would increase the annual GDP in Asia and the Pacific by 4.5 trillion USD. During COVID, the commitment to achieve this even became more important as many women in the region were further disadvantaged by the increasing burden of unpaid care work and higher likelihood of being laid off as compared to men. I am pleased as a Malaysian that our country is making good progress in promoting women in the corporate world. In 2021, women in senior management positions reached an all-time high of 40%, and in 2022, women accounted for 38% of CEOs. While Malaysia has made tremendous efforts on gender equality and has taken relevant actions to strengthen the policy framework for gender equality in recent years, structural challenges still exist. In the near future, gender equality will become an even more critical policy objective for Malaysia. A dynamic policy design is necessary to promote increased participation of women in the labor force and reduce the negative factors that hinders this. Having said that, the agenda of women's empowerment and the involvement of at least 30% of women in decision-making at groups at every level were among those contained in a resolution called Tekad Wanita Perpaduan, signed in conjunction with the Unity Government National Women's Convention yesterday, which is a groundbreaking for the women's agenda. The list of emerging factors slowing the progression of gender equality and women's empowerment include, firstly, the substantial gender gaps continue to deprive women and girls of opportunities. We continue to remain off target to achieve SDG 5 on gender equality. Worryingly, progress on some of the gender indicators has either stagnated or deteriorated over the last few years. Secondly, better educational outcomes and economic growth has still not translated into more jobs and higher quality work for women. Women's labor force participation rates are at a standstill and even decline in some sub-regions over the past 5 years. Thirdly, women are more greatly impacted due to climate change and environmental depletion, which has reduced food security and increased threats of livelihood. Clearly, we must strengthen the enablers to ensure robust progression towards gender equality socially and economically. One strategy is incorporating gender equality into mainstream education, using social media to convey gender sensitivity and using role models to demonstrate how elimination of gender bias has benefited society. Another method is enhancing investments into ending the rural-urban divide, such as financial support and skill leveling programs that cater to women's needs in these areas. Concurrently, public institutions should be supported in its planning and delivery of quality training, reliable and affordable childcare, elderly care services, and provisions to ensure safe commutes and workplaces for women. I dare say that the status of women is a barometer of a country's prosperity. As the world comes out of this global crisis and charts its way towards sustainable recovery, it is imperative that we do better to realize the full potential of women. Inaction is not an option. We need empowering partnerships, bold commitments, and a common vision to be on track to achieve the 2030 agenda. Transformative change is unlocked through multi-sector collaboration, and we recognize that the private sector has a unique role and responsibility in driving transformation. All of your attendance today is a reaffirmation that Malaysian businesses are stepping up to lead a gender-inclusive recovery. I am honored to celebrate with you all the businesses that you present and lead in an effort to drive change and create a more equitable future. Before I conclude, on behalf of the Organizing Committee, I would like to express our sincere appreciation and gratitude to all our partners for their support of this summit. And to all our award recipients, I would like to congratulate you for your achievements. Most of all, to all the delegates here and also on the virtual platforms, thank you for your participation. You are important to us. Thank you for your attention and enjoy the summit.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jessie Tang. for the speech and how you spoke about the opportunities and the way forward for young women and girls. Now we have a special address by Under Secretary General of United Nations and Executive Secretary of the Economic and Social Commission for Asia and Pacific, ESCAP, Her Excellency Ms. Armida Salsiah Alisjahbana, who will be delivering a video message.
Excellencies, distinguished participants, it is my distinct pleasure to deliver the special address at this year's World Women Economic and Business Summit. Over the past few decades, the Asia-Pacific region has emerged as the most dynamic region in the world, and women have contributed greatly in steering these development success. This summit allows us to reflect on and celebrate these contributions with all the inspiring women gathered here today. As we highlight and celebrate the achievements of women leaders, we are keenly aware of the gender gaps that continue to persist. Multifaceted barriers continue to hinder the contribution of women and girls towards sustainable development. Let me highlight a few priority actions. First, fostering women's economic empowerment and participation. Globally, around half of women participate in the labor force. In the Asia-Pacific region, that rate is 47%. Women's economic empowerment is key to realizing the potential of women and girls across all spheres of socio-economic and political life. Economic empowerment enables women to make an independent living, develop financial security and stability, and participate effectively in our society. Addressing the disproportionate burden of women in unpaid care work is a key action required to remove the gender gap in economic participation and enable women and girls to fully unleash their potential. Second, promoting women's leadership in business management. A Harvard study found that women in business scored higher than men on most of the key leadership qualities, including resilience and results-driven attitudes. Women also pull ahead in motivation, bold leadership, and teamwork. Yet, only about 1 in 10 of Fortune 500 chief executive officers or CEOs are women, a milestone reached just this year. In Asia, women make up only 4% of CEOs in publicly listed companies with a market capitalization of more than $2 billion. Only 10% of chief financial officers and 5% of board chairs. While we acknowledge that progress is being made on many fronts, we need to set the bar higher and take action to break down the barriers and glass ceilings. We must focus on education and leadership training and take decisive action to address social norms and stereotypes that create an unconscious bias towards women. We must ensure safe workspaces, which are critical to advancing women's economic participation and leadership. In our region, sexual harassment and discrimination in the workplace is a key barrier to overcome. For this to happen, we must recognize that advancing women's leadership is not just a women's issue, it is everyone's issue. Men have an essential role to play in promoting gender equality and creating an inclusive environment. We need to work together to create a culture that values diversity, inclusion, and equality. Finally, catalyzing women's entrepreneurship. When women can start and grow their businesses, families and communities thrive. The multiplier effects are just enormous, and we know a good thing when we see it, which is why we at ESCAP are implementing a large and successful regional initiative that focuses on increasing access to financial services and digital solutions for women entrepreneurs in Asia and the Pacific. And we have, in the last few years alone, directly supported over 100,000 women entrepreneurs and unlocked over $60 million of capital for their businesses. We all have a part to play as leaders and mentors for the next generation of leaders, as enabling and decisive policymakers, as researchers and advocates. And together, we can uplift women and girls across the Asia-Pacific region to become entrepreneurs, business leaders, innovators, and change makers. We stand ready to build back better, stronger, and more gender equal economies and societies where no women and no girls will be left behind. I wish you a very successful summit. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to Her Excellency Miss Armida Salsiah Alisjahbana, who has been a constant supporter of our events for a long, long time. Ladies and gentlemen, the time has come for us to listen to the Minister of Women, Family and Community Development, and I have been observing her. She's a 10 out of 10, looking at the screen, very energetic and engaged. So I know that the Honourable Minister will be delivering a opening address entitled Empower a Woman, Change the World, Creating Hope and Opportunities. And with that, YB Dato Sri, the floor is yours.
Suddenly I become tall. Well, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. A very, very good morning, especially to all the guests and those who have come from far, who have been supporting this event. Thank you very much for coming. First of all, I'd like to address our Dato Jessie Tang, Chairman, Organizing Committee and Director of KSI, who have been very, very committed with what she has been doing all these years. Yang Bahagia Tan Sri Michael Yeo, President of KSI. Yang Bahagia Dato Halimah Said, Co-Chairman, Organizing Committee. Excellencies, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank Tan Sri Michael Yeo and his team at KSI, as well as partners of the 2023 World Women Economic and Business Summit for giving me this honor to deliver the summit's opening keynote address and to speak to everyone here today. And as the MC said, I was very focused on the screen, not only on the screen, I was listening to Dr. Jessie, trying to see, or maybe trying to get whether they did pick some of the matters that we have discussed yesterday in the convention, and true indeed, she did. Well, thank you. So ladies and gentlemen, fighting for gender parity is a consistent cause that requires timeless efforts from everyone. It is therefore platforms like this where we assess how women have fared in Malaysia and the world that never lose its importance. As Minister of Women, Family and Community Development, it is my mission to ensure that more is done to elevate the status of Malaysian women all across the country. Ladies and gentlemen, even before joining the ministry, I've long been part of women empowerment through my association with NGOs. And yes, we have come a long way, but we must do more to empower and enable more women to reach positions of prominence and leadership in many aspects of society, which are still dominated by men. I'd like to remind the men we are not being biased here. We just have to do our part. If we do not fight for ourselves, nobody else is going to fight for us. But we know we have the support of all of you here and so many other men out there. And we need the support of our leaders as well. That's why in my position, I have to be persistent to ensure that what we need as women will be spoken out there to ensure that everybody is listening to us. So thank you very much for supporting us. So ladies and gentlemen, we are no stranger in the World Bank 2019 Malaysia Country Report on the breaking barriers, which states, I quote here, if all economic barriers are removed for women in Malaysia, the country's income per capita could grow by 26.2%, implying an average annual income gain of 9,400 ringgit, unquote. We also know that Female students, enrollment rate is very high, higher than male students at all levels of education, with the highest difference being in tertiary level. However, this is not reflected in our labor force participation. The Department of Statistics Malaysia reports that labor force participation rate for women is only 55.5% compared to men at 80.9% in 2021. And coincidentally, yesterday, I spoke on empowering economies among the nation, because as the Prime Minister had been mentioning, we are trying to put a noktah, full stop towards all this poverty in the country. So I was given that task yesterday to speak, and one of the topics that I mentioned, which Dr. Jessie did mention just now, unpaid labor, especially those homemakers. Homemakers doesn't have to be women. It can also be men. So I was suggesting so that these homemakers should also be recognized and be paid. And I didn't get much response from the audience. Maybe a lot of them would think that they would be affected because some of them, if they consent to paying whoever the homemakers is, be it the mother or father or even the daughter, whoever is taking care of the family and taking care of the home, should be paid. To me, should be paid. I know it's far-fetched, but somebody has to mention this. Somebody has to be brave enough to say this. Well, let's see what is going to happen from time to time. We have to keep mentioning, we have to keep pressurizing the authorities to make sure that they will include this in the future. But mind you, actually women, especially since my NGO days, women are the ones who mainly create economy in the world, not just Malaysia. Why did we say that? You look at handbags, you look at washing machine, you look at the dryer, you look at a lot of things which the surveyor had been approaching women because they are the ones who mainly take care of the homes. And then they went to survey, and the respondents are mainly women. And the women are trying to make things easy for them so that they can send the children to school and then leave the laundry at home, and after that, when they come back, it's already dry. That's one of the products. And the quite number of things, because their demand is always there. That's why you see a lot of women doing a lot of artwork, and that creates more, and that attracts people to wear what they have already produced, and that's just examples. So these are the small examples that show that economy is always created by women. So, but the men who are always the one in control of big corporations are the ones who help to produce them. So we work together. We work together to make sure that we do something for the country and for the world. So, ladies and gentlemen, therefore, continuous efforts are being taken by the government to close the gender gap, starting with protection and benefits for women in the workforce. And in Malaysia, 15.4 million are women. That covers about 47.7% of our population. So therefore, we need to make sure that we do have to speak on women agenda, not women gender, but women agenda at all times until we get there, and we must continuously make sure that we speak for them, because your children are women, your grandchildren are women, and therefore we have to speak for them. I've always reminded myself, my children will be asking, what did my mother do when she was there? So I'm just trying to do my part to make sure that we do our part for the nation, not just for my children, not just for our grandchildren, but for the nation. So, ladies and gentlemen, for example, the Employment Act Amendment 2022 introduced several significant changes to the previous act that aimed at benefiting both employees and employers in Malaysia. That includes to increase women participation in the workforce. The amended act increased the length of paid maternity leave from 60 to 90 days. The act also introduces a new section that prohibits an employer from terminating an employee who is pregnant or who is suffering from an illness arising out of her pregnancy. The amendments also require an employer to always exhibit visibly a notice to raise awareness on sexual harassment at the place of employment, because it is important to make women or men feel safe at work. We are going towards that very soon, maybe by the end of the month. We might start going around. The Deputy Prime Minister one will be kick-starting our agenda on the act on the anti-sexual harassment act. So we will be going for that very soon. But to rest assured, we don't want this to be something that can be abused by either whoever who is going to be affected by it. So that's why we are very, very careful. Even though the act is already completed, but before we want to implement it, we want to make sure that we are very, very careful. There's no one to be, we want people to be safe. So just be patient, you'll be hearing about it by end of the month, not end of the year, end of the month. So anyway, in addition to that, this year, Social Security Organization, or SOCSO, will amend the Employment Insurance System Act 2017 to provide the allocation of childcare grants to women who are returning to work. This 1 month grant equal to 80% of the insured monthly salary will be provided to approximately 136,800 women who return to work after their maternity period, amounting to 290 million ringgit. And another important benefit for women to join the workforce that must be upheld by the government is the governance and quality of childcare centers. For this, a total of 15 million ringgit is allocated as a soft loan for childcare operators in recent budget 2023 announcement. 80 new Kemas nurseries, Kemas is under one government department. The nurseries will be built to support this initiative. And further, a monthly childcare fee subsidy of 180 ringgit per child will be provided for civil servants, while the monthly income limit of households eligible for nursery fee subsidy was raised from 5,000 ringgit to 7,000 ringgit. The ongoing legislative reforms, policies and plans reflects the government's commitment towards supporting women, such as childcare of return to work policies, by building a society of equal opportunities. So, ladies and gentlemen, the Malaysian government aspires to increase female labor participation to 59% by 2025. And that is why the policy on 30% women in decision-making positions is consistently incorporated in our Malaysia plans. Why is this important? It sends a signal that women can make it to the top, challenging 3 stereotypes. And firstly, that only women need to balance career and family commitments. Secondly, the deep-rooted bias that men should have more power and privilege than women. And thirdly, the belief that women are more emotional and thus hindering the promotion of women. We are happy to report that in the public sectors, we have reached 38.8% of top management women representation. And for our national effort, we received international accolade for our best practices at the recent 2023 Global Summit of Women in Dubai. To get there, more needs to be done. While efforts are being undertaken by the government to protect women and ensure their fundamental rights, there are still systematic cultural barriers that need to be overcome. Before I conclude, the reason why I brought this, the writer Shika Kedia Baradwaj, where are you? She's here, yeah, she's there. Well, I'd like to congratulate her. She used her quality time when she was having her baby during COVID. She wrote a book on the millennial mom. Congratulations to you for using quality time to produce a book. So, ladies and gentlemen, to conclude my speech, I once again thank the organizers for inviting me to deliver the summit's opening keynote address and wish success to the discussions that will take place throughout the day. I'm sorry I cannot stay longer. Actually, I wish I could invite all of you to our ministry's open house today. But I know you have to stay back. You have to give them the support because they have done a lot to make sure that this will be a successful event. So all the best to all of you. Thank you very much and have a fruitful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dato.